law enforcement in this community. Known Detective Wells for quite a while, and I'll tell you right now, stand-up guy. Also a leader in the community, a leader in the police force. We'll introduce you to Detective Michael Wells here in a matter of moments. If you'd like to interact with the show in any capacity, just put your thoughts in the social media streams of any of these platforms you're watching upon. We're happy to relay those thoughts and questions on air. The only caveat is they better be respectful or they're not going to get mentioned on this network or this show. So we're going to spend 30 to 45 minutes talking with the gentleman that I think is an absolute asset to this community. Xavier Yerpe, hello. I see you on the show over there. Welcome, Xavier. Hello, David Hassler. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Pabrita Sheltry. Ali Wang. Hello, and welcome to the broadcast. Alba Bonilla, welcome to the broadcast. Kim French. Ella Russ, welcome to the broadcast. Mike Pearl, hello, and welcome to the show. Give the show Keith Smith. Good to see you, buddy. Distinguished gentleman, welcome to the broadcast. We're going to spend 30 to 45 minutes with a stand-up guy and Detective Michael Wells. Judah Wickower, my friend, we are in your hands. Give me T-minus 5 seconds, sir, and we can lock and load. For those that are watching on Detective Michael Wells' page, any comments you want to relay on air, we will put them on air to Michael Wells. If you want to give him some props, if you want to like the show and sing him some praises, we can do that as well. Judah Wickower. Kelly Lewis, hello. Kelly Lewis, and welcome to the broadcast. Kelly, remind me, your mom at one time was number 2 at the CPD. Is that right, Kelly Lewis? I believe at one time your mom, which I know you love dearly, was number 2 at the Charlottesville Police Department. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Kelly Lewis. And Kelly, we love when you watch the program, as you already know. Judah Wickower, we can rock and roll, my friend, when you are ready. Good Friday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us on a glorious and gorgeous day to be alive. We're live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the world on the I Love CVille network, every social media platform humanly possible. We're presented by Dr. Wagner, Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Dr. Wagner absolutely has your back, and of course, we're powered by Ting Fiber Internet. Ting Fiber Internet is crazy fast internet. I have been looking forward to today's show for the entire week. The gentleman we're about to introduce you to, we are lucky to have in this community. He is not only honest, a man of character, a straightforward guy, but he is a leader in multiple police forces, and I'll have him give those specifics to you. Judah Wickower is our director. My friend Judah Wickower, if you can first start with the studio camera, and then let's welcome Detective Michael Wells to the show. Chad Wood, welcome to the broadcast. If you have some props, some praise, and some questions for Detective Wells, just put them in the feed. Hello, NBC 29 and CBS 19, welcome to the show. Judah Wickower, studio camera. Detective Wells, you were on air. Thank you, my friend, for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. Thanks for the invite.
It's our pleasure. The show is yours, sir. Before we go into some topical material, how about an introduction to you?
So I am a 27-year Central Virginia law enforcement veteran. I've worked for 2 of the big 3 local police agencies here. I'm not here on that, I'm wearing a different hat today. I'm here not representing Albemarle County Police, where I currently work. I'm here on my time off, my day off, to exercise my First Amendment rights as the Senior Vice President for the Virginia Police Benevolence Association, of which we have over 4,000 members, and also the Central Virginia chapter of the Police Benevolence Association, which there are now 676 members through our Central Virginia region. So we're not a union, nothing like that. We just represent the men and women of law enforcement in Central Virginia who strive to do what's right every day and try to help people. And we do that by trying to help with pay and benefits, as well as laws and political screenings. Those kind of things take place so that we try to help enhance the law enforcement profession. We don't condone bad cops. We represent those who are doing the job, because unfortunately in this job we have sometimes when we're doing this job we have very limited amount of information at the time of the incident, and we expect officers to do the best they can with the information they're given at the time. Should they make mistakes, which do happen in law enforcement, we're not immune to making mistakes, then we have a legal benefit as well as a grievance benefit that each member is afforded, and there's no cap and no limit to how much the Police Benevolence Association will spend on representing that police officer and their rights, because police officers do have rights also. There's been one case in particular. We spent $1.5 million, went to the U.S. Supreme Court and had experts come in from all over the globe, the country, to speak on behalf of the officer and represent that officer. And we have a very robust budget. We have a lot of reserves. The Southern States Police Benevolence Association is doing very well, which Virginia is part of that Southern States Police Benevolence Association. And so we have this year, actually next week, we'll be meeting in Richmond, and the presidents from all the chapters throughout the state will be having a board meeting, which we do annually, except for last year because of COVID. And we'll be screening candidates running for state office, and then we'll also be going over our legislative agenda that we'll be trying to assist in trying to enhance the law enforcement profession and pay and benefits, that kind of thing.
You got a lot of support on the stream right now.
Oh, good.
Chad Wood, keep up the great work. Michael Wells. Your niece, Brianna Sanson, is watching right now.
Okay, cool.
We'll acknowledge the Seville Weekly on the show, Jennifer Hernandez, Kelly Adams, also giving you some props. So why don't we go super layman's terms here for those that are not serving our community. And I want to say this, anyone that goes into a community and routinely puts their life on the line for folks like us deserves respect. And I say that, me saying this,
appreciate that.
I've come across you in a couple of things in the past, and you were A+ stand up, as good as it gets. And that's me saying that here, and I sincerely mean that. How many folks in this community that are active police officers locally in Central Virginia, again, are involved in the association?
676 in the Virginia, Central Virginia chapter of the PBA.
Okay.
Of which 146 are Albemarle County Police, and then at last check, I think there were 95 Charlottesville City members.
Okay.
I'd have to look at those numbers. Those change daily, and that kind of thing. So,
is the university police?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
University is.
They have I think about 47 to 50 members.
Okay. Byron Greenberg, Dr. Greenberg here, thanking Officer Wells for his good example, strong ethic, and willingness to serve. Pat Slater, giving you some props on the feed. If you want to give this gentleman some props, some questions, some praise, put it there. Where do you want to begin, Detective Wells?
So first of all, Dr. Greenberg is a cop doctor. He's our department psychologist who the police officers go to. And in my job in cyber crimes, I see him annually to go over my, just basically head examination kind of thing, just to make sure my head's right and that kind of thing. And he's a wonderful resource that our department has in place, and all of our officers can see him at any time to talk about things, because we see, hear, even smell a lot, and some things you shouldn't ever see, hear, or smell. So it's great to have a resource like the cop doc is what I call him, and he's a wonderful resource for our agency. So if there are other cops out there and they need to talk to somebody about something happening, they can get in touch with me, and I can get them in touch with Byron Greenberg. He's a great doctor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Detective Wells, the show is yours.
Well, so I want to start. There's two major things to talk about, I guess. One is is a thank you to Albemarle County. I recently met with the county executive's office, Jeff Richardson and Doug Walker, and they, along with Chief Lance, were able to enhance our pay this year. There was some issues with we had enacted what's called a public safety pay scale, which includes fire. And I pick on the firefighters, even though they're first responders, everyone knows. But we call them second responders because they always, are staging until the police get the scene safe. So that's a little inside joke we have. But nonetheless, they were able to, find it, and our Board of Supervisors were able to vote for approval of us receiving some extra pay this year other than what was allocated. They originally allocated 2%.
2% raise?
Yeah, and
it doesn't even keep up with cost of living.
So what's interesting is when we developed the pay scale was implemented to keep officers, and they could kind of project how much money they would be making. So when COVID hit, understandably, everyone's scrambling. How do you save money and trying to do that? So Human Resources is trying to avoid compression because compression is the big, elephant in the room that no one wants to have happen. So what they did, and I'm friends with Human Resources. I work closely with them. What they did was they moved our starting pay backward 2%, and then no one got a raise. So that was kind of critical because when you move your starting pay back, you're obviously not attracting good candidates. So I said, that's a mistake, and they were like, well, what else can we do? So that's where we were. So when they gave us 2%, that moved that back up to where it was the year before, and then the officers got the 2% that they would have gotten had COVID never happened. So with this public safety pay scale, every 3 years, Human Resources is supposed to go and do a review of how we are compared to our market. So I asked if they would do the market review a year early because I felt like our pay was really not in line with our market. And they did. And it showed that Albemarle County Police was 8% behind market. So I was like, okay, so what are we going to do about that? And they were like, well, we got 2%. And I'm like, well, that's to quote Taylor Swift, that's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. So they're like, well, we kind of got to an impasse with Human Resources. So I reached out to Jeff Richardson and
He's the county manager.
Yeah. County executive, and Doug Walker, the deputy county executive. Met with them, drafted a letter that I was going to give to the Board of Supervisors, and Jeff made a very good point. He says, hey, I'd like an opportunity to look this over before you give this to the Board of Supervisors because, hey, they're my bosses and we've never met, we've never talked. So I was like, that's a very good point. So I gave Jeff, a little time to, read the letter because it talks about manpower, our staffing levels. It talks about pay, benefits, training, all that kind of stuff that really is important to keep a professional police department afloat because you just need to look in the news and find out what bad recruiting and bad officers will get you. So I want to make sure that we keep our high standards. So long story short, we are currently at 1.2 officers per thousand population.
1.2 officers per 1,000 citizens in Albemarle County?
Right. And the DOJ recommends 1.9. So
0.7 short, that's a substantial amount.
Right. And the board has always, well, not always, but a few years back, the board made a target of 1.5 officers per 1,000. We've never reached that. And so there was a common misconception that the SROs were somehow going to, since they're not in the schools anymore, they're going to somehow boost our numbers. But they've always counted.
What are SROs?
The school resource officers.
Okay.
That are no longer in our schools, which is a whole nother show. in and of itself. So those officers that had already been counting toward that number. So there's no additional value of those officers being on the street answering calls because they already counted toward the number, so it doesn't boost our numbers. So I wanted to make it clear that to get to 1.5, we need more people, and we're not getting more people, and we continue to grow as a community, and we need more officers on the street. So I made that clear, and also recommended that we see the schools getting money thrown at them through the state and federal programs, which is great. Nothing against schools, love schools, they're needed. And then Albemarle County School Board proposing this virtual staff of 56 people to run the virtual school, which novel idea. And apparently they couldn't take staff they already had to man that, so they needed new staff that the county will probably have to absorb next year when those funds are gone. So I just wanted to point out, like, hey, we're over here and we need some love too, kind of thing. So they were able to give it to us. Now the never have I ever contacted the county executive's office to talk to them or discuss these things before. Now I hope the line of communication is open, and they were able to get us the 5% we requested, and we discussed morale, those kind of things. Jeff seemed really genuinely interested in our job and how it's changed. He sent us a private message over our server for officers on Police Memorial Week that was very heartfelt, and we're very appreciative of that. And I told him, some of those things won't cost a dime, like showing us some appreciation publicly, because we weren't there in Minneapolis when George Floyd was murdered. Okay, my badge is not tarnished.
Well said.
My badge is not tarnished. My badge is shiny, and I'm not ashamed to be a police officer, and none of us are. We're ashamed of what that police officer did to George Floyd, and no one's more pissed off about that than good cops, okay, because that set us back a lot in this country. And so to put that on all of us is, sometimes in this line of work I've encountered people whose brother maybe committed a lot of crimes, but then there's another brother who's awesome and goes to church, has a job, all that kind of stuff. So for them to look at me like I was there is kind of like someone blaming a brother for something, So I'm just
that
like,
seems like common sense to me.
Yeah, we weren't there, and justice, is being served, I believe. Horrible incident, and we haven't had anything like that here, and we want to keep it that way. So I'm just kind of wanted to remind them that, hey, there are cops every day out here doing the right thing. There are still cops out there that got into this line of work to help people, and I'm one of those. And I think all the ones that I know that are in my association feel the same way. And we're not going to defend bad cops. So if this had happened here, he would receive no PBA benefits. There's a vehicle in place. So if there's a grievance or if someone needs legal assistance as a police officer, the local board has to approve that. And if something like that egregious happened, they will not receive coverage. Not on my watch. I'll vote no, and then it's up to my other board members. So just want to make that very clear.
Well said. Have we seen the response since the Floyd murder? How would you characterize it to the force and to the association?
It's just been, first of all, it was a tragic incident, and just could have been handled so much better. And it's set us back. We have to build rapport with our community. We have to build respect, mutual respect, and that shattered a lot of that and set us back a lot. I really don't know how else to say it.
The 1.2 officers per 1,000 people in Albemarle County, that's a statistic I think we all need to be concerned about. These folks are keeping us safe. And the entry salary for someone to get on the force has got to be compelling enough for someone willing to risk their life as their job.
Right, right,
And these seems like, again, like straightforward common sense items to me.
right.
Two-part question. How many on the Albemarle County Police Department live in Albemarle County?
Don't know the answer to that.
What do you think rough?
Maybe 30%.
So 30%. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate statistic.
Right.
Do we know CPD, rough estimate?
No idea.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been so much turnover over there. I don't know half the guys over there anymore. Just I see their names. I know their names. I don't really know a whole lot of them. I know the older ones that have been there a while, but not.
There's nothing that would mean more to so many of us that are watching to have you guys living in Albemarle in the area you serve. And for
Right.
that to happen, you guys got to get compensation that's equivalent, if not better, to cost of living.
Right.
And I just can't comprehend not compensating you guys to the tune of not giving you raises to well above cost of living, well above inflation.
Well, what's interesting is, and I made this point to County Executive Richardson and Deputy County Executive Walker, that this is a moving target. Like, we're 8% behind now, so giving us 5% doesn't. That target is moving. So 8% now, but then in July it's going to be, it would have been 10% or
Sure.
12%. So we have to stay very diligent to stay up on the market. And then, if you think about that, a $38,000 starting salary.
38,000 starting for all.
Yeah, I mean, until July 1st, and it goes up 2%, is not much more than a living wage and then you're asking these folks and we're trying to attract candidates that, have degrees and have common sense and what I call good home training, where they can come out here and be, answer the call, because book smarts is great. It's wonderful to have, but, there's, as my dad used to say, but there's no exception for good common sense and someone who can talk to someone, It has good home training. That's what we need.
The Police Civilian Review Board's been in the news.
Right.
You can't turn on TV, pick up the newspaper without hearing about the Police Civilian Review Board. Where do you want to go with that?
So we just want a seat at the table. It doesn't have to be me. We have 105 attorneys throughout Virginia that represent the PBA. Some of them are in town. Obviously, we use Denise Lunsford a lot. A lot of people request her to represent them for various matters. Will Tanner, John Zunka. We have a lot of Kelly Hobbs. There's a lot of attorneys here locally that are PBA attorneys. My idea, the only input we have on the Civilian Review Board, it has been basically during public comment. And I want that to change. Like, we understand policing. We've been doing it a long time. We understand that there needs to be changes. We understand there's going to be changes. And we're okay with that. Change is not necessarily always bad. We just want a seat at the table. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that we can say, okay, well, this can happen and this maybe couldn't happen. Why? Those kind of things can be answered.
Why don't you have a seat at the table?
Good question. I'd love to have a seat at the table, and it doesn't have to be me. Frankly, I don't want to be there. I'd like to keep up with it, but it's just, I've got a personal life that I enjoy,
Right.
Away from work, and I've got enough. So one of my board members, or maybe a local attorney, or someone representing the PBA's interest and the members' interest, because there's a lot of navigating that has to be done when you go to change things, and I want them to understand, why, cop have to do things a certain way. If you don't do the job, you don't understand it. And a lot of times it's just miscommunication. And I train officers on how to communicate better with others in crisis, and how to explain things. Because when I went through the academy in 1994, they taught me, when I go up to the car, to put, hand on the car, go up and say license and registration, and nothing more. Someone would say, well, why did you stop me? And I would say, I'll be glad to tell you after you give me your license and registration. So there's this fighting already started with this, well, I'll give you my license and registration when you tell me why you stopped me. So there's this back and forth. Okay, so that's the way we were trained, and that needed to change. Why not go up and say, hi, I'm Mike Wells with so-and-so police department. I stopped you because you're speeding. Can I get your license registration? A little short introduction makes it so much easier. So I challenge officers when I train them that if you give someone a ticket and they thank you afterward, you've done a good job. Chief Lance with Albemarle County Police Department tells our officers when he hires them, I want you to spend the 3 extra minutes. So what does that mean, 3 extra minutes? That means spend 3 extra minutes with someone so that they don't have a bad experience with police officers, so that they can have good interaction, so that we can have good rapport with people. When they have to encounter police again, they know that we're human beings. Because I put my pants on one leg at a time just like everybody else. I can make a mistake. It may be a mistake for me being on your show today, but nonetheless, here I am. So I think it's important to remember that we're human beings and don't always think the worst because of what you're seeing somewhere else.
Why'd you come on the show?
I just think it's time to kind of get the conversation started. I see that there's obviously there's some issues going on at the city police department. I don't want to talk bad about Chief Brackney. I will say that there are lots of issues going on over there.
Turnover, morale, pay.
Yeah, although their starting salary is better than the county's, I will say that there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of symptoms of poor leadership, okay? And so I think we're treating the symptoms, and we need to treat the disease.
What's the disease?
Well, leadership needs to change. Leadership needs to change their approach. What's Dr. Phil say all the time? How's that working for you? So I think there's been some missed opportunities. And that's easy for me to say, not having her job. Her job has got to be very difficult. Being the chief here and coming in Chief Longo's footsteps, because he's the superstar that was the chief here. Yeah, he's a legend here. He left. He had an incredible legacy here. Now he's with the university, doing a great job there, getting them squared away. So that's a big shadow, obviously. Even for a little guy, I pick on him about that.
He's jacked, though.
Yeah, he is. So that's got her job is difficult, and I'm not going to deny that. But I think there's been some missed opportunities. This thing with the Gilmore guy and Officer Wood, I think that was a missed opportunity. New officer received sort of not enough training because of COVID. There was some training cut short, and I think there were some missed opportunities there. And I can't really talk about that too much because it's Jeff Fogel's on board already doing an active civil case.
Mr. Fogel's watching right now.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Jim Williams says, "You go, Mike." Chris Hernandez says, "Thank you, Mike." I'm going to acknowledge some of the people that are watching on Detective Wells's page: Jonathan Truslow, Ricky Hodge, Tyler Rich, Jason Nathan, Todd Bean, Sam Belcher, Chris Hernandez, who I mentioned, Kimberly Rather, Walter Trainham, just to name a few, Kelly Adams, Jennifer Hernandez, just to name a few. If you'd like to ask Detective Wells a question or give him some props, put that in the feed, please. What we try to do with this show is to have real conversation. We have real conversation so the audience, and this is airing on every social media platform possible, can understand what's going on in the community. Chief Brackney was a finalist for Dallas police chief job some months ago. She obviously didn't get the job because she's still the chief of police here in the city of Charlottesville.
Right.
To your point, she takes over for Tim Longo, who, as we both acknowledge, is a legend. And we also acknowledge she's taken over post August 12th at a time where the city of Charlottesville we can both characterize as fragile.
Don't forget Al Thomas was there for a span.
That's right. Al Thomas. He had a cup of coffee here.
Right, yeah.
Cup of coffee. So the city, I would say, is still fragile.
Yeah, and so I think the city needs to have a chief that's invested. So if she's not invested here, if she's using it to move on, then that's probably not going to work for a lot of different reasons.
You're saying it's a springboard to a better job,
right.
or not a better job, to a higher profile job.
Well, and the community needs to be brought back together. They need to be brought back together. We need to all sit down and talk about things and try. They're really not as bad as they seem, I think. Cops are generally during boredom, and I'll just say this: when you get a bunch of cops together and they're not doing anything, they get a little bored and a little childish, and they'll do jokes and pranks on each other and stuff, and it's funny. Because it's a kind of a coping mechanism, because we see, hear, and smell a lot of things we probably shouldn't. So there's an administrative investigation going over there. I saw Rob Schilling's piece on the SWAT team thing, and so I just hope the right thing is done over there. That's what I try to live as long as I try to do the right thing, I'll be okay. That's what I always tell myself: do the right thing, do the right thing. I keep hearing my mom and my dad tell me to do the right thing. So I hope she does the right thing here and can differentiate between cops that are being childish and need to be told, hey, knock it off, versus toxic masculinity and all this kind of thing. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I don't want to. Other than that, what I just said, I really don't want to speak about it. We do have Will Tanner and Denise Lunsford working with those members that are that are under review, I guess. There are a lot of symptoms of poor leadership. So I just hope, and I've learned a lot by just my interaction with County Executive Richardson, that maybe I need to talk to my board about maybe trying to have a meeting with Chief Brackney directly, because
would she take that meeting?
I don't know. Maybe not. She might tell me to get lost, pound sand. I don't know.
And if you have that meeting, the conversation goes how?
Well, I think it would need to stay private, and we would, just say like, hey, here's our concerns. Like, are you here or are you in? You're either in this or you're not. Like, where's your head? Where the police department needs you. This is a critical time, for the police department. And so I think that we need someone that's invested in this community and not trying to go elsewhere. And so, because this city is already, that summer of hate, as Hall Spencer called it in his book, is and that was a great book, by the way.
Hall Spencer, former editor of The Hook, now a journalist, professor at James Madison University.
Yeah, and I had an occasion to work a case with Hall Spencer before, and he didn't necessarily trust the police at the time, but I think I brought him around a little bit, saying, hey, we're human beings too, like, what's the deal? So Hall's that book was great, and this community has still not healed from that, and that's a lot to happen to a community, and I think that we need to be mindful of that and try to get a tourniquet on this situation to heal it.
Word.
Because it's and more separation and missed opportunities to bring folks together and have a discussion are not what we need, because it just seems like there's more separation as opposed to more coming together. So I'd like to see those opportunities come together. Like, if an officer makes a mistake, okay, made a mistake. It's not a Herculean task to get rid of a guy that's on probation. That, by the way, was the officer of the month at least one time while he was there, but he may or may not have made a mistake in encountering Mr. Gilmore, and whose mom, by the way, is on the CRB, and so the police department investigates that themselves, and then the Yeager incident that's still pending court, with the police department investigating that not only administratively but criminally, and not bringing in an outside agency like the state police, not bringing in a special prosecutor. There's a lot of things that go on here that are cause me pause and make me scratch my head. Like, what are they thinking? Like, why do they think that's okay?
The concerning aspect of this is it breeds distrust.
Right.
And it breeds distrust at a time where the badge is being challenged from a character standpoint and a
Right.
trust standpoint by so many in America.
Right.
So the last thing we need is the breeding of more distrust internally within a department, when outside the department, so many folks in the community and in the country are challenging the badge.
Yeah.
This is an advertising agency. That's called PR 101. That's branding 101. Your thoughts on and we'll acknowledge some people watching here. Jim Williams, Jonathan Truslow, Tyler Rich, as I've said, Garrett Moore, Melissa Freeman. Melissa Freeman says, we back the blue. It is so important to bring back respect for our officers and for the law. Thank you for your dedication, Mike, to bridge that gap. Thank you for the help. Garrett Moore is saying the same thing. You got much of your association watching you right now. The defund the police movement means what to you? Because like the Police Civilian Review Board, defund the police. I mean, it's on the tip of a lot of people's tongues.
Right. So whenever they cut police budget, there's two things that are normally taken away: training and equipment. Okay, those are the two things that are most often cut. Or they will cut, maybe freeze positions, not hire. So you're talking less people on the street that are not trained as well if they had the funds for the training, or they have a car that could break down on the way to a call. So you tell me what makes sense about defunding the police. Because I think what the police need are more training, okay, that we need is more training, sorry. So we have to be very selective in what that training is, because I think there's a new breed of officer that's coming in, and we have to figure out what makes them tick. And a lot of times, you know, I'll be teaching a class, and these kids don't know how to talk to one another. They're used to texting because that's all they've done, and they're not sure how they kind of just freeze when they have to talk to somebody.
Human connection.
Right. So we have to be able to teach that a little bit, and we have to be able to teach how to. The cops generally and inherently are pretty good at de-escalating situations. What we're bad at, or what we're not as good at as we used to be, is persuasion. So like if you're ramped up and you're angry and agitated, you know, when the cops show up, sometimes I can de-escalate you. But then when I try to talk you into receiving services, that's where the problem is. We need to be better at persuading people to seek resources and try and seek help, joining up and trusting the police and saying, hey, I got a resource, have you thought about this? So,
give me an example. So say like a domestic.
Maybe there's a veteran in the home who has, you know, some mental health issues or something. You know, we are aware of resources that are just specific to veterans that maybe they didn't know about. Like, it used to be called the Virginia Wounded Warrior Project. Now it's called Veteran Services. So I recently actually tapped into that resource down at the incident on Teal Lane that we had a couple weeks ago. Very good resource that veteran had never used before. So those kind of things, cops need to be familiar with resources, and we have a ton of resources here in this community. And we need to be able to tap into those resources and keep relationships. We also, you know, community policing is very important, and people preach that. So Chief Lance and Colonel Sellers, when he was here, implemented our community policing program, where we have two sectors now. We have a Blue Ridge district and a Jefferson district, and so officers are assigned those areas routinely, and so they become familiar with their community, and so and you know, they interact with the public so that they're trusted. When I worked the street, I worked Crozet all the time, and I had people that would call me and say, hey, did you know this was going on? So those community interactions, when we're not on those calls for service, make people trust us, and the trust is what we need.
I'm going to relay some comments.
Okay.
From friends and colleagues of yours. Melissa says, defund the police. Melissa Freeman, defund the police is the most idiotic and moronic movement ever. Ken Richardson says, Mike, this has been needed for a long time. I wish in my career that someone had gone the distance to represent the officers and not the command staff. Former Albemarle County police officer. Krista Galeo, great job speaking out. Kelly Adams, absolutely correct about defunding. More and better training is paramount to advancing good practice policy in policing. Connie Haga, thank you for addressing an issue that needs to be addressed. You know we back the blue. Dan and Connie Haga. Jeremy DeLange, I'm sorry if I'm messing up your last name, Jeremy. Good work, Mike. Thank you for doing what you're doing right now.
So some of those people, Ken Richardson was one of the first members of the police department when it transitioned from a sheriff's office to Albemarle County Police Department. Legend, great guy, taught me a lot, and I appreciate him. Dan Haga is a retired Virginia State Trooper, and he lives down in Southwest Virginia. He was also the Deputy Chief of Police, or Deputy Chief of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office for a couple terms down there with Ken Phipps as it was a sheriff.
You got West Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina watching, along with Richmond, Short Pump, Southwestern Virginia, Northern Virginia, Crozet, Ivy, City, and County. I want to throw a lot to you here. Where should I start? Police Civilian Review Board. The fact that you guys don't have a seat at the table seems asinine to me.
That's just all we're asking, is just to be able to have some input.
Right.
We're not trying to sabotage it. We're not trying to we're just trying to give you points of view, a perspective that you don't have.
Exactly.
That's
You know
all.
what I can equate this to is the Charlottesville-Albemarle Tourism Board.
Right.
They're limiting people that work in the tourism business from being on the board.
Are they saying it's a conflict of interest or something?
Yeah, it's a local government instead of folks that are actually in the trenches on the tourism board where they can do this for 50,
Well,
60 hours a week,
so,
offering
yeah.
perspective.
And we're not trying to drive the conversation into, we're just trying to help everyone understand why things are a certain way. And cops don't like, there's two things cops don't like: the way things are and change. So we're kind of childish that way. Like, you just tell us the rules, let us figure it out, and then leave it alone. Don't mess with it. So that's kind of what I think cops here are wanting, is just like, all right, tell us what to do. Like, we don't know what to do. It's kind of like the masks. Like, are we wearing them? Are we not wearing them? Like, when we started transitioning to not having the masks on in stores, like I go into Lowe's and I've got my mask on and I see everybody walking around with their masks off, and I'm like, oh, we're not doing it anymore. And so, just tell me what to do, and then we'll do it. Quit changing it so much.
Melissa says, and Texas, Jerry. Texas is also watching. Melissa Freeman.
Yes.
School resource officers is coming up on every page here. Do you want to offer some perspective on this?
So I'm not sure if my Facebook, I don't go to Facebook a whole lot anymore.
Your
but
Facebook, when you get off this page, this show
it's going to be blown up.
You're going to wait till you see
So-
what's going on your Facebook here.
So I used to have a picture with Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman.
Is that on your Facebook profile?
I think so. Yeah,
Judah,
I
can
think-
we find that? And I'm putting you on the spot here. Detective Michael Wells' Facebook page. Is it the one that's your current profile picture?
I think it is.
It's his current profile picture, this one right here?
Yeah, that's it.
That's the current one. If you could put that on screen for us, sir.
So that guy has written a lot of books. He's amazing, amazing speaker on killing. He kind of talks about mass killings and goes into detail about those kind of things, and how we have a obligation to protect our children. Okay. And
Amen.
and he does a spiel where he goes into a group of people that he's speaking to, and he goes, you look around this school, because most of the time he speaks in a school setting, in an auditorium or something, and he goes, you see fire retardant materials, you see a fire alarm, you see a fireproof door, you see all this material to prevent fires. He says, do you know when was the last time there was a school fire to kill somebody, to kill a child? And then he tells the year. I think it's 1963 or something. That's when they changed and made schools have all this fire-resistant material, and everything has to be fireproof. And he goes, when was the last time a child died from a mass shooting in a school? And yet we don't do anything to protect our children. Like, we don't arm our teachers, those kind of things. Now, I'm not saying that we need to arm our teachers. I'm just saying that, there are a lot
Pictures
of...
on screen now
Yeah,
of
okay,
the gentleman you're talking about.
Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. He's got a number of books. One's on killing, and I can't think of all the rest of them, but he's got I think 4 or 5 books. He spoke locally here at least on 2 different occasions. Great guy, great mind. He kind of breaks down the mind of a mass killer in these school shootings and stuff. So his logic to protecting our children, like if you have a school that has a police car out in front of it that is kind of a deterrent. If you see a police car, what's the first thing you do?
I probably wouldn't do anything wrong around
hit your
it.
brakes, right? Or
Yeah.
something. If you're driving,
Right.
you hit your brakes,
Yeah.
or you're like, making sure that seatbelt's on, all that kind of stuff. Same thing. If you're gonna if you're thinking about shooting your co-students or going into a school if you don't belong there, and you see a police car out in front of it, and you know that there's a police officer in that school, is that going to deter you?
You're going to think multiple
You'll
times.
think a little bit
Yeah.
about, like, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Right.
So it's very disheartening and I'm not bashing our school board, the Albemarle County School Board or any school board. I know they have tough jobs too, but I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. I think school resource officers are needed. Okay, I think they should be, and that's my personal opinion. It's not the opinion of the police department. It's not the opinion of the PBA. It's my personal opinion is I think they should be there, but I think they have to be the right people. I think you have to have the right cop there.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so some cops are, my buddies are going to laugh at me when I say this because I give this analogy a lot. You have to have a toolbox, okay, as a cop. And in that toolbox, you have to have screwdrivers and you have to have a hammer. Sometimes you need a hammer, okay, to fix a situation. And what I mean by that is you need to break out the hammer and get to business, okay? But you can't fix every problem with a hammer because you're going to break more stuff than you're going to fix. Sometimes it needs a little finesse. Maybe you need a screwdriver or something different. So if you put a hammer in a school, you put a cop that's out here that's really proactive and wants to do, like enforcement, and he goes into a school, that's a bad mix. That's not going to mix, okay? But if you put an officer in there that knows that's a multi-tool or has screwdrivers and everything available to them, that knows how to finesse the situation and knows how to work, and knows how to use common sense instead of just enforce the law, but the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law are two totally different things. So you have to have the right people in the schools because working as a school resource officer is a tough job. I filled in one time as a SRO back when I was on patrol.
Which school?
Albemarle High School.
Okay.
Wait a minute, no, it wasn't. It was Western Albemarle High School, and I would never consider putting in for that job because it's just too much. Like they were utilizing the school resource officer to do administrative things that the school should have been doing. So we have to do a better job of telling them, no, that's not my job. I can't handle administrative duties. If something happens and it breaks bad, you call me, kind of thing. So my point is I think it's a great deterrent. I think officers need to be there to kind of foster that relationship with the young child. And our SROs, I thought, did a great job of that. I think that, and when I say ours, I mean Albemarle County. That's what I'm most familiar with. I think they did a great job of fostering that relationship and building bridges with young people that is going to be sorely missed in our schools. Now, they're hiring school safety coaches or student safety coaches, they're called, which, by the way, the starting salary of that is more than a starting police officer. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I hope it works out well.
The school safety coach's starting salary is more than a starting salary on the Albemarle County
Right.
Police Force?
Yeah, makes sense of that.
How does that make sense?
I brought it to their attention.
And their response?
They're going to look into it, so we'll see.
Do you get a lot of we're going to look into it?
No, they really do look into
They
it
do?
when they do. Yeah, I'm not going to, that was kind of the school board and the board of supervisors and the county executive's office have a good relationship, and I think they'll look into it, and I think they will try to make sure that it gets looked at.
You've got two board of supervisors watching as we speak.
Okay.
Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. Is the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office a partner to the Albemarle County Police Department?
Yes.
You paused there.
Yeah. So different philosophy than what we're kind of used to. He's a activist kind of thing, mindset, and I get it. He has a different philosophy, but he and I have talked on numerous occasions, and we agree on some things, and some things we disagree on. The voters put him in office, so we're going to try to make the best of it. I have nothing bad to say about Mr. Hinchley. He and I have agreed to disagree on some occasions, but all in all, I haven't personally had any issues. But I, have some coworkers that have.
Because their platform and Joe in the city Their platform is not to use the jail system. Their platform is almost in opposition to jailing and arrests. And we've had Mr. Hingley on the show quite a bit.
Right.
As he was running his campaign, after the campaign, Mr. Hingley listens to the show and watches the show routinely.
Jim's a good guy. I just think he and I agree on the mental health aspect of things and those kind of things, the mental health docket he's gotten going. He's done a lot of good things. So I got nothing bad to say about Jim, other than, it's kind of a different philosophy, but he tells everybody his philosophy, and then the voters either put him in office or don't, and it's their choice, which, that's up to them.
I'm mindful of your time here. We're about 1:21 here, so maybe we'll go a couple more minutes. How do you characterize Albemarle County now, as opposed to you've been wearing a badge for 27 years?
Right.
How's it changed? Change for the good? Change for the worse?
Some good, some bad. I think we're having it's kind of been a roller coaster ride, if I'm being honest. Right now it's kind of it's a thankless job, and there's not much respect anymore. It used to be kind of more respectful to officers, but we have to earn that respect back. And I try to tell our guys and girls that every day. Like you got to earn that respect from people these days, and so people in general don't like to be held accountable now, and that's a change fundamentally throughout the country. So when you hold people accountable and they, my best thing is to say, hey man, people make mistakes, just admit you made a mistake here and let's try to fix it. Let's try to move forward. And but officers are not immune from making mistakes too.
Yeah,
I just want to remind,
yeah,
it's there's always room for human error.
I'm going to give you all the folks here that are applauding you and giving you props. Sean Stavitsky, Al Ramos, Lori Ann, Bruce Jones, Ken Richardson, Jeremy DeLange, Glenn Hale, Julian Rothgeb Sr., Melissa I've mentioned, Jonathan I've mentioned, Ricky Hodge, Jason Nathan, Todd Bean, Sam Belcher. I mean, I could spend 15 minutes here reading off these names that are giving you props.
Well, I'm not looking for props. I'm looking to move forward. I'm looking to try and heal this community and try to figure out how we do that and have good cops stay here, because I think the city and the county need good cops, need good people,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of good people still there, and I want to see them be retained.
Brian Garland, great job. Michael Wells, you're a great officer and a leader. You want to go with a final closing word? You got every media outlet in town watching you right now.
No, I think I've said it all. Like I'm ready, willing, and able to come to the table and try to heal some of the stuff that has happened, and trying to get past it and trying to get this community to come together, because ultimately that's what needs to happen. A lot of people think that what happened in August, that horrible year, that this was just kind of the epicenter, and people came here from all over and destroyed our town, and now they're gone, and we're here.
We're left with the collateral damage.
Yeah, and so it makes it. Everybody's looking at each other like, are you the one who did that? And no, those people are gone. Those people are gone, and we're here together now. And we've got to come back together and figure it out. The police can work with the community, and the community can work with the police, and we just need somebody to build that bridge. And I'm not saying I'm a bridge builder, but I'm just trying to put people in the right places to make it happen if I can. If I can help with that, I'm ready, willing, and able.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it.
I'll close with this. Judah, if we can go into one shot, about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Jason Tooley says, awesome job, Mike. Can you imagine, or try to imagine, waking up each day, husband, wife, father, mother, and your job is to leave your home and protect a community that you don't always know, and your significant other and your kids and your extended family and your friends don't know whether you're going to come back safe or sound, alive or dead. There's very few of us in this world that have a profession like that. and to marginalize the commitment that someone makes to serve a community, from my standpoint, is wrong. And as Detective Wells said, there are some in any profession that lack honor, character, and integrity. And those bad apples eventually will be weeded out. But for the most part, mankind has a good soul. And it's wrong to label a profession because of something that happened in the middle of the country in Minneapolis. And what happened to Mr. Floyd, we both agree, was murder. But the police officer who murdered Mr. Floyd is not indicative of police forces across the country or across the world. So what we tried to do here on this show was to offer transparency, because transparency creates trust. And trust is what we need in this community. That's what this network is about. Transparency to create dialogue, dialogue to get the community moving forward. Thank you for joining us today on a glorious Friday afternoon in Central Virginia. This is the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller.